Miss Fortune is one of the most fun champions to play in the game with her potential to wombo combo with other champions and synchronize her abilities as well as bully other champions in the laning phase. However, many people play her incorrectly by not building the correct items, and yes, the new items did change a lot for her build, as well as they also don't play her in a way that maximizes her damage or really utilizes the most out of her kit. So today I'm going to be showing you exactly how to do that, how to get the maximum that you can out of her kit, as well as how to really get the most amount of damage that you can from her abilities, both by showing you how to use them properly, but also how to build her properly. And again, I said that the new items did change some stuff, so I will be covering that in the build section of the video. In this video, I'm going to be covering everything that you need to know, whether you're a beginner or a one-trick Miss Fortune, you're going to be taking things away. I'm going to be covering her abilities, her combos, her build, runes and spells, and then I'm going to be going over some of her matchups as well as tips and tricks that you need to know if you really want to get good on Miss Fortune. So I'm going to be having timestamps on the screen right now. However, I highly recommend watching the entire video if you really are serious about improving at this champion. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Alright, so first off, I'm going to be covering her abilities, but before that, we need to cover her passive. So her passive is basically going to deal extra damage if you alternate your targets. So right now, I'm dealing around 570 damage for a crit. If I keep on attacking the same target, it's going to deal a lot less damage than if I'm starting to alternate my targets. If I alternate my targets like this, then I'm going to be dealing a lot more damage than if I'm just hitting one target. And this is really important if you are clearing minion waves or you're in lane and you're trying to deal your maximum damage, whether it's in a small skirmish or something like that. If you are able to alternate your auto attacks, you're going to be able to deal out a lot more damage than if you are just hitting one target. So that is her passive. Miss Fortune's first ability is basically going to bounce a bullet off of one champion and then hit it to any champions behind that. So this also applies to minions. You can use this on minions, and it's really great for poke in the laning phase, especially if you're up against some champions that are susceptible to poke. This is going to help out a ton. However, the range of the skill shot, if you are off by a tiny bit, it's actually just going to miss that champion if you are off by just a little bit. So you really need to make sure you're on point if you're aiming this ability. If you're starting off with Miss Fortune, I would recommend just using the auto attack, the auto aim feature. But if you are aiming this ability, which I do recommend in higher elo, you need to make sure that you're on point or you're hitting a target like a minion and then hitting a champion behind that. It's also important to note that the ricocheted bullet is going to deal more damage than the initial bullet. So if I do this right here, the first target took 277 damage and the second target took 638 damage. So it's important to note that the second target will take more damage than the first one. Miss Fortune's second ability is going to be, after you take damage, you're going to have, after 5 seconds, a little bit of movement speed, which will increase over time to up to 90 movement speed, depending on how far you level up this skill. So if I take damage right here by the turret, then I'm going to be slowed down a bit. But then over time, after not taking damage, I'm going to start gaining movement speed from the passive, and then eventually hitting a point where I am at the max movement speed from this passive. So what does the active on this ability do? So if you activate this ability, you're immediately going to get the movement speed. And this is really great for getting back into lane or getting to team fights or just roaming in general. So you're going to get the max amount of movement speed, as well as once you activate this ability, you're going to be having faster auto attacks than if you did not have this ability up. So right here, my auto attacks are a bit slower. As soon as I activate the ability, the auto attacks are going to come out a lot faster. Also, it's important to note that if you use your passive while this ability is down, for example, if I have this ability down and then I use my passive, then it's going to renew the ability faster than if I didn't use my passive. So every time you use your passive, this ability is going to be reduced by some cooldown. So that's also really great to know. So after that, we have Miss Fortune's third ability, and this is actually an ability that has a pretty decent range, but it's going to be usually used as a combo starter. So this ability will basically slow any units inside the range and also deal some AP damage. The damage that it does isn't very much, but the main thing that you're going to be using this ability for is for the AoE slow, as well as comboing into your ultimate. If they're slowed and in your ultimate, it's going to be a lot harder than if they are not slowed and they're just running normally out of your ultimate, as well as it'll combo into other abilities from your support or your teammates as well. Lastly, we have Miss Fortune's most iconic ability, and that's going to be her ultimate. And what her ultimate does is it's basically going to shower a bunch of bullets in this huge radius. And it's really great for when you need to have some damage in team fights. It also has an immense range. Like, just look at that. Your auto attack range is that large, and your ultimate range is that large. So it has a huge range. It deals a decent amount of damage. It's really great for if your enemies are already CC'd either by yourself or by someone else. It's going to be hard for them to get out of the ultimate. And also, this ability is great for picking off enemies that are too far, and you can also use it for wave clear later into the game if you really need to, which I'll be covering later into the guide. But the main thing that you want to take away with this ability is its range and also its team fight potential. You also want to be trying to use this in choke points where your enemies are trying to walk through a certain point, or if they're chasing you. You can also recast this skill to cancel it at any time, and it will also be canceled by any CC. So be aware of what CC your opponent has and be sure to take note of that before using this ultimate and getting CC'd immediately. So just know what crowd control abilities your opponents have. That way you don't get canceled right away. Do you suck at Wild Rift? Do you feel like your teammates are always toxic and trash talk you in chat? Do you feel like you try your best every game and try to carry, but your teammates always seem to hold you back? Are you stuck in your elo and you don't know how to get out? Then you should probably quit Wild Rift. I mean, you should go ahead and watch my videos. I have a ton of videos on this channel, all geared to helping you improve for champion guides and macro guides. And if you do enjoy, please like and subscribe, as it really does help out with the YouTube algorithm. I tell you guys to do this every video, but you guys aren't doing it. There's still like 8% of you guys that are subscribed, and I love each and every one of you 8%, but you 92% out there are missing out. So you guys can hit the like button and subscribe if you guys do enjoy these guides. Usually I would have an ad here, but since I am telling you to subscribe, I will not put an ad in this ad break. So thanks guys for watching, and continue watching the video. I'm going to be going into her build and items now. So now I'm going to be going into one of the most important sections of this guide, and that's of course going to be the build section. So I'm going to be covering what items you should buy, because a lot of people are building just random items on Miss Fourtune, so they're just trying out new items, but I really found a really great build for her, and it starts off with Essence Reaver. This is a great item for Miss Fourtune because not only does it give you attack damage, critical rate, and ability haste, it will also deal bonus damage and also restore some of your mana. And a lot of people do have some mana problems with Miss Fourtune, whether they're spamming her skills a little bit too much or they're going for a lot of poke. Mana is sometimes an issue with Miss Fourtune players, so this item solves that. For her second item, you can go for the Infinity Edge, which will give you a bunch of damage and critical rate. You can also be going for Executioner's Calling if you are up against healing, but if you're not, then just go for Infinity Edge. After that, you can go for a boot item. I recommend going for Gluttonous Greaves into a situational enchant. So you can either go for the Quicksilver enchant if you're up against a lot of CC, or the Stasis enchant if you're up against an assassin or someone that can burst you down quickly. For your fourth item, you want to be going for Rapid Fire Cannon. And this one's just to increase your auto attack range and just have a safe way of doing that, as well as increasing your critical rate and attack speed. It will also give you a bit of movement speed and increase your auto attack range. For your last two items, you can build situational items. And the first one is going to be one of the new items, and that's going to be Cerealda's Grudge. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but I'll put the name of the item on the screen right now. It'll give you attack damage and ability haste, as well as armor penetration. So this is really great later into the game. And also this will slow enemies every time you attack them or you use an ability or empowered attack. So this will proc on your first skill and your third skill, and it will enable you to slow enemies in your ultimate, which is absolutely OP. Another item you can go for is Bloodthirster, which just gives you a bunch of attack damage and vamp. Another situational item that you should always consider is going to be the Guardian Angel if you're up against AD and you need some extra attack damage. It's always going to be a great item against AD. If you don't know what AD or AP means, or how to itemize properly, I do have an itemization guide. I will leave the link to that in the description down below. But the last item that you can go for is going to be for Storm Razor, and this is also one of the new items, but it's also really, really great on Miss Fortune, and a lot of the top Miss Fortune players have been playing Storm Razor Miss Fortune because the passive really goes well with lots of different ADCs. For Miss Fortune's runes, you want to be going for Conqueror or Fleet Footwork as your first rune. I like going Conqueror just to stack damage, but if you are playing in higher elo and you want to kind of have more sustain, you can go Fleet Footwork. If you want to snowball harder, Conqueror is a better option in my opinion. For her second rune, I like taking Brutal just to have some lane dominance and just to have that extra bit of damage right from the start of the game. For her third rune, it really is situational. I like going either Second Wind if you're up against a lot of poke, or I like going Hunter Titan if I want to snowball a bit harder. For Miss Fortune's last rune, if you did take the Essence Reaver as your first rune, you will not need to take Mana Flow Ban, and instead you can either go for Sweet Tooth, which is what I like to go just for some sustain in lane, or you can go for Hunter Genius for a bit of cooldown reduction. So that is Miss Fortune's rune setups. For her spells, I would recommend going for Barrier and Flash, or Exhaust and Flash. Obviously, if your support does not take heal, try to tell them to take heal, but if they don't, then you can also go heal and flash. Alright, so now I'm going to be going into the most important section of the video, and that's going to be the tips and tricks section of this video. And the first tip I have for you, and one thing I see a lot of Miss Fortune players doing incorrectly, is going to be using their passive improperly. And this is extremely important when you are in a team fight, or you're clearing wave, or literally doing anything on the map. You really want to get max use out of her passive. And what this means is when you're clearing minion waves, you want to be alternating between hitting different minions to clear the wave faster. If you're hitting a turret, then you can alternate from hitting the turret to hitting an enemy minion to hitting the turret again, and that will help you clear the turret faster as well as clear the minion wave. So doing things like that, or even in team fights where you're alternating from hitting different targets, it's going to help maximize your damage and really help use your passive to the max potential. And I see a lot of Miss Fortunes just hitting the turret over and over again, or they're just hitting one minion at a time in a minion wave, and one of Miss Fortune's strengths, which comes with her passive, is just being absolutely wasted in that point. So you want to be learning how to retarget your auto attack and learning how to really get the most use that you can out of her passive. So that's my first tip for Miss Fortune, is really learn how to use her passive. My second tip for you is going to be how to draft Miss Fortune. So what enemies do you not like to see, and what enemies do you like to see? And the thing about Miss Fortune is that the enemy that you don't like to see, and probably the only ADC that Miss Fortune really struggles against, is Draven. Miss Fortune is an early game lane bully, so when she is against Draven, that kind of counteracts that. So when I play Miss Fortune, I most of the time will ban Draven. But if you're playing Miss Fortune into any other champion, it's mostly going to be okay. Just watch out for CC and really look out for healing on the enemy team. If they have a lot, then don't forget to rush Executioner's Calling. Also, it's important to look for CC on your team. If you have a lot of CC like a Mumu or Malphite or anyone like that that has a really big AoE ability that can crowd control the entire enemy team, Miss Fortune is going to be a really great pick with her ultimate able to combo into that really big CC. So if you see someone like Kennen, Malphite, a Mumu, or someone like that that can CC the enemy team, and then Miss Fortune is going to be a really great pick. So that is the draft that you want to look for Miss Fortune. My last tip for you is always looking for great opportunities for your ult. You don't need to always start off with using your ult. You want to look for a good opportunity to use it. Don't underestimate the range that your ult has. It actually has an insane amount of range and covers a huge area. So you really want to be looking and finding the best opportunities to use your ult. Don't waste it right at the start of the fight, and remember to use your third skill before it, and just looking for choke points where your ultimate will really get a lot of value, because if you hit those juicy ults, Miss Fortune is just going to be an absolute beast, and it's going to be really hard for the enemy team to deal with. So that's my last tip for Miss Fortune. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, I haven't been posting so many guides recently, and that's because the Wi-Fi here has been acting up a little bit, so it's been hard for me to get my own gameplay. So today's gameplay comes from a different channel. I'll leave the link to theirs in the description down below. You guys can go subscribe to them as well. But with that out of the way, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!